What's going on, everyone? This is Joshua here, Future Filmmaker Reviews with me, giving you guys another 2022 related review, and this is going to be my review for Morbius. This is directed by Daniel Espinoza. This is the third film in Sony's Spider-Man universe. This stars Jared Leto, Matt Smith, Audrey Arjona, Jared Harris, Tyrese Gibson, Ahmad Drigo. It is the newest superhero movie released last week on April Fool's Day. Yeah. And this is based around the Marvel Comics character Morbius, the living vampire. Ooh, this is going to be an interesting one. Dangerously ill with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others from the same fate, Dr. Michael Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. While at first seems to be a radical success, a darkness inside of him is soon unleashed. Okay, let me get into it here. When it comes to Morbius, this was a movie despite my extreme reservations, even when it was first announced, I went into this movie with an optimistic mindset. I wasn't really that thrilled about it, because, let's face it, if you guys know my channel, I have been pretty frustrated with the two Venom movies and this whole Sony Marvel universe without Spider-Man, because I feel like in order for this to fully work, you need Spider-Man to fully make this cohesive and make it stick. But despite that, I went into this with an optimistic mindset, as I do with every movie, and I was excited at first when this was supposed to come out in 2020. Then the movie got pushed back because of the stupid pandemic, of course. Then the movie got pushed a couple furthermore times to late 2020 to 2021 and to 2022. But even with all the delays, I still went in and gave it a chance because I do like Jared Leto as an actor. I know about his crazy antics, especially with the stuff he acted up during the production of Suicide Squad. But also, the rest of the cast also interested me, so I wanted to give this movie the benefit of the doubt. But then the negative reviews came in. Then the director did spoil the movie a week before the movie came out, and then you heard about the troubled production that went on, especially with Sony removing almost every single Spider-Man hint that they could have had in this movie.
Oh my God.
And that didn't leave much expectations. So I watched this movie on the 31st of last week, and while I will say this is not the worst movie ever made, I'm not gonna sit here and say this is a good movie. Now, I know there are people out there who's actually enjoying this movie, but unfortunately for me, even as optimistic as I can be, I have to ultimately say this is definitely one of my least favorite films of the year, and this is definitely kind of a disappointment. Now, do I hate this as much as other superhero movies like Green Lantern and Fantastic Four 2015? No. Do I think it's one of the worst movies ever made? No. It's nowhere near as bad as movies like Mean Girls 2 and Music, directed by Sia, which came out last year, which is an insult to the entire autistic community. But I can't sit here and say this is a good movie. This is a movie that I feel like had good intentions, but unfortunately, I don't understand what went wrong in the editing room and what was going on while they were making this movie. But there are some things good I can say about this movie. It's few and far between, but there is some good things I can find and to say about this movie. To give this movie at least a few positives, I will say Jared Leto is doing his best as Morbius. He is a good casting choice, and he is fully committed in the role. And he does have his moments of being good in the role. There are some moments where where the script is holding him back, but I feel like Jared Leto, he's doing the best with what material he's given. He is fully committed. He does make the role his own. And this is a better superhero character for him than Joker, because I thought he was fine as Joker, but he was completely underutilized in Suicide Squad Chapter 16, which is not his fault. Here, I think he is trying for what he's given, and he does commit to the role. I can also say the rest of the cast is good. Tyrese Gibson, Adria Arjona, and Matt Smith are all very solid actors. Tyrese, especially from Baby Boy and Fast and Furious. Adria Arjona, I remember from Six Underground. And Matt Smith, he was in the Doctor Who show with him and Karen Gillan, where he was Doctor Who, and she was Amelia Pond. And I think Jared Harris is also doing the best he can. I think all of the actors are doing what little they can for the paper-thin characters that they are provided with. And I think they do try to make this movie somewhat watchable. Also, I do like some of the entertaining aspects of the horror, vampire, superhero blend. It felt like the director wanted to go more of a superhero take on Dracula. What if Dracula was a superhero? And I did get that vibe here. I do appreciate the attempt, and I do appreciate the effort that Daniel Espinosa was trying to do. I can also say Espinosa's direction is also quite solid in here. I can also say that Daniel Espinosa, he does have a certain flair. He has done. He's not the greatest filmmaker out there, but I feel like Daniel Espinosa, he is trying. I thought Life was actually pretty solid, and Safe House was actually very decent. So, I feel like for his attempt here, I think he's desperately trying, and I do feel like there are moments where I feel like his direction and cinematography flair is present, and the music isn't half bad. I know moments where I do feel like Espinosa's direction and cinematography flair kind of stands out. He does have his own style to it, and I do feel like for the material that he is working with, he's trying his most desperate. And I will also say the music in this movie is actually very strong here. It's not the greatest score ever. I don't think it's obnoxious, but I don't think it's bad. I just think it's okay. It's an okay score. And there's one entertaining action scene here that I did find myself enjoying with Morbius. Unfortunately, between everything else in this movie is what holds this movie back and makes this a crushing letdown that doesn't leave much of a bite into the vampire genre and bringing it back into full stream, because this is where I have to get into the situation of what happened, because I don't really understand what went wrong when it comes to the production of this movie and with the delays, but with all of those delays, you would think they would have enough time to make a perfectly entertaining, even great Morbius movie. And unfortunately, when you have the studio of Sony getting their hands on this, once again, studio interference. Have you not learned anything from this, Sony? Have you not learned anything from this? Kind of just messing up the film once again. And this is frustrating because this is a character that should easily be the easiest movie to make good. There is literally no reason for this to be as very frustratingly edited as it is, to be so structurally weird story-wise, because the story in this movie, you can tell that there is a story in this movie, but the problem when it comes to this movie is I'm not sure if there were things taken out, or Sony said we have to make this under 90 minutes or whatever, but something and someone is to blame here, because this is one of the most weirdly structured, crazily complicated, frantically put together, sloppiest executions of the story I've seen. And I'm not blaming the director for this. He was doing what he was trying to do. But unfortunately, what he's trying to do is plagued by Sony and once again the studio interference. And it definitely feels like one of those early 2000s superhero movies, which if this was 2002 or something, I would be like, okay, this is fine, this is epitastic. But since we have stuff like the DC Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even stuff like Sonic the Hedgehog and other franchises where they do plant the seeds and they still are able to make quality as great as it is. Even the MCU, while I wasn't the biggest fan of Eternals, there was still some redeeming things there that were trying to be interesting, and it didn't feel studio mandated. Whereas this movie, it feels like studio mandated due to its weird story, and the story here is very weirdly structured. I'm not sure if that was an editing flaw or what, but I was not a fan of what they did with the story here. The CGI, how though, we gotta talk about this because there are moments where the CGI is iffy, and then there's moments where the CGI effects are bad, dated, even at points where it just looks like something out of a PlayStation 2 video game. And I don't really understand this part either, because you have a $75 million budget. The cinematography work and production and costume work is on screen. It's just when it gets to the effects, and especially when it comes to the way certain effects are, it is ridiculously bad. And also, stuff in the story does not really make sense here. When it comes, how did the brother of Morbius get this whole serum to where he is who he is? Spoiler warning. I'm not gonna say why. What is this love relationship between Morbius and his Arjuna? Like, we don't really get to flesh out what's the whole thing with Morbius. How is he reacting to this whole this vampire thing? You don't get to know any of that because the movie's only an hour and 44 minutes. This easily should have at least been 2 hours and 6 minutes. This should have been the longest of the Sony Marvel universe so far. This is what I mean with Sony interference. You have good intentions, and there were some good horror vibes in the Venom movies. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of them, I don't hate them as much as I should. But this is what I feel like this easily should have been a home run for them. But the epictastic material that needed to be there is missing. But back to the effects. Some of the effects look unfinished. Some of them just look like some of the effects that came out of the Batman and Robin. I'm not joking you. And that's not only the worst thing about it. I've already touched on the editing and the sound mixing when it comes to certain sounds, like Morbius just going boom, just appearing and disappearing. I'm not sure what was going on here, because this has to be Sony interference. And the more news is coming out about this movie, between the production troubles and between the post credit scenes, which don't even get me started on the post credit scenes, because you literally market this with Michael Keaton being in this as Adrian Toomes, which had me 100% interesting. But my goodness, what they do in these post credit scenes, and the Spider-Man references are almost every single one of them was completely cut out, so you don't even know which version of Spider-Man is in this universe. And the fact that you're trying to tell me that this MCU villain is in here without an explanation in these 2 post-credit scenes? No. Even Kevin Feige earlier today has said this, he had nothing to do with this in a recent interview. So those final fights and the credit scenes, even the final fight is not even that exciting. So even with that, it's just, I don't know what you're doing, Sony. It feels like you're not really trying. It feels like you're not giving it your all here. And this is unfortunate because I was interested in this, but Sony just once again between not letting. This is my problem with Sony. If you're not gonna let these filmmakers do what they want to do, if you're not gonna treat these characters, especially these Spider-Man villains, with the respect they deserve, then more people are gonna keep calling you out. Now, the Spider-Woman movie with Olivia Wilde, I still have hope. Craven, I hope, is somewhat watchable, and I hope Madam Web with Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, does not turn out to be this bad. Because I'm not even angry as I'm recording this. I'm just more irritated, I'm disappointed, and I'm completely frustrated because I had hope this was going to be the one to make vampires cool again, but hopefully with Mahershala Ali's Blade in the MCU, it can make vampires scary and cool again. I appreciate your attempts, but Blade, this is not. And that is unfortunate. That is unfortunate. So overall, when it comes to Morbius, I did not like this movie at all. It's not the worst movie of 2022. It's no Moonfall, but this is yet again Sony's attempt to keep this Marvel universe going without Spider-Man, and this is a frustrating and irritating attempt. Not one of the worst movies ever made, but this is a not very good start, and not a very good way for Morbius' debut film in live action at all. There's a few good positives, but this should have been way better than it was. And the fact that this movie is doing as well as it is, even with a low score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's kind of baffling, but I'm really not that surprised. But I don't really want to see if the next time we see this character, get Kevin Feige involved with this, because if this is what you're going to continue to do, then you're really scaring us Spider-Man fans who are fans of these villains. So I'm gonna say you go into a red box, but once we got to the post-credit scenes, this is a somewhat skip it. So in the comment section down below, what did you guys think of Morbius? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere right in the middle? On my social media, description box down below. Stay cool, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool and stay epitastic.